now and we'll make a start. So morning, everybody. My name is Ian Barfoot. I am in charge of University and Careers Guidance at DBS. And you can see my email address on there. I just want to mention that before we start. If you do have any questions about university applications, wherever they are in the world, not just to the UK, then please do email me. I'm more than happy to meet you as families to talk about your particular situations and how I can help with destination planning and that kind of thing. So please don't be afraid to reach out. I meet parents regularly every week to talk about this kind of thing. So it's absolutely no problem at all, either via Zoom or in person in school. We are going to talk about the British university application system today, but that will apply, the same rules apply, the same process applies if you are a home or if you are an international student. So whatever I say today makes no difference if you're a home or an international student. The application process is the same. So what is UCAS? It's a charity. It stands for the University and Colleges Admissions Service, and they basically just administer university applications in the UK. They don't make any admission decisions or make policy or anything like that. They are purely an administrative body that disperses applications to universities in the UK. Okay, so that's what they are. And almost all applications in the UK will go through UCAS. Now, I said the application process for home and for international students is more or less the same. If you are an international student, you do have the ability to apply direct to some universities, but you do have to be careful about doing that because you are still only allowed to make 5 applications to British universities. So you can't make your UCAS applications and then through the back door, as it were, add another 3 or 4 direct applications. That could land you in trouble. So just be careful about that. If you are an international student, if you apply through UCAS, you can make 5 applications. It's no problem at all. There are also some British universities that you can apply to through Common App. So if we have any international students, families on the call now that are thinking most of their applications may be made to the US through Common App, but I maybe want to make 1 or 2 applications to the UK as well, then you might be able to do that through Common App. There aren't all universities in the UK are not on Common App. So it might be a coincidence that a couple of universities in the UK that you want to apply for happen to be on Common App. You can just make your application through Common App. It saves you having to write another personal statement, fill in a whole bunch of other personal details to apply through the Common App system to the US and the UCAS system in the UK. So that's something to look out for. That's fairly a niche situation, but it could happen. Okay, so let's get on with the main body of today's presentation then. If I can change slides, there we go. Now, there have been some changes to the UCAS reference this year, which is one of the 3 parts of your UCAS application. Okay, so I'm going to talk about these reference changes and the implications to candidates in a moment, but I'll talk through those 3 parts to your UCAS application. So the first part is filling in the UCAS form, which is all about personal details, education history, and selecting the 5 universities you want to apply to. So there's a lot of static information that UCAS collects, okay? The second part, the candidates, the applicants will write a personal statement. That's the same for every single applicant. And the third part of the application is the reference that we write in school. Okay, so they're the 3 major parts of the UCAS application. Again, it's the same whether you're a UK or an international student. Those 3 parts still exist. Now, UCAS have made some changes to the reference part of the application at the behest of universities. So universities went to UCAS and said, we're getting such disparity in references from schools all over the world. We can't compare candidates reliably. So we need to distill that reference down into 3 manageable chunks. So essentially now in school, what we are writing is a 4,000 character reference that is split into the 3 sections you can see on the screen. So the first section in that kind of yellowy brown color is a general statement about the school or college. So we just enter a bit of a description, a bit like a school profile, we'll put in there. The middle section is, as you can read on the screen, about any extenuating circumstances that might have impacted the application's achievement. Now, this is quite a sensitive box, so the kinds of things you could put in here are perhaps a change of teacher midway through a course, but this is much more about individual circumstances of the student. It might be bereavement, family moving suddenly from one country to another. It might be a diagnosed learning need that we put in there. So this is quite some sensitive information that universities have said sometimes got lost in a 4,000 character piece of prose that schools would write in a reference. So they want that front and center in the application so that they can take account of any individual students' diagnosed need or any support they might need at university or anything that might have affected their education or achievement. Okay. Now, because some of this information is quite sensitive, we are going to have to seek families and candidates, applicants' permission to write things in there. If it's a diagnosed learning need, there is a place on the form in UCAS that candidates can write that as well, but we can also write it in here too. So I haven't quite decided how we're going to collect that information or permissions and things like that, discuss what we're writing in this section with families, but we're going to need to do that as part of the application. But we do have time to do that. I was only on a webinar last night, a UCAS webinar, where they were explaining this to schools and colleges as well. So these are fairly recent developments, and really it's only now that they're starting to firm up what they're expecting in these 3 boxes from the school. Now, the last box is probably the most important one, and I've shared this with students in school already, but this is about supportive information relevant to the course and specific to the applicant that the universities need to be aware of. So this is where we write about how suitable a student is for a course, but it's different from the way we used to write an old reference, in that we would have an A4 sheet of paper, 4,000 characters, and we would write a reference in prose. And now sometimes it's quite easy to make a candidate sound, shall we say, a little bit more ambitious and exciting than they perhaps are in real life. So there was essentially a lot of waffle that went on in some of these references, and the universities have said that's not particularly helpful. So what they want now is not even prose. They are happy with bullet points that specifically evidence the students' engagement with their course, activities out of school that are relevant to the course, etc., etc. So I said to the students a couple of weeks ago, it's going to be very hard for us to fill box 3 if students don't do anything outside of school or even inside of school that is relevant to their application and that might make them stand out from other candidates. So as I said to the students a couple of weeks ago, you have to make sure that you're doing things that make you look like a motivated, interested and suitable applicant for a particular course. You can't just bumble your way through school and think, oh, you know, I played for the school football team for 3 years. That's not something that universities are going to deem relevant anymore. Therefore, it's not something that will go in this box 3. So candidates really need to be thinking about how they are bolstering their application with reading, MOOCs, work experience, visits to employers, taking part in webinars. All those kinds of things are the things that we can put in this box 3. Okay, so that's something maybe for parents to be aware of, and maybe give your sons or daughters a prod in that direction to make sure that they are filling a CV with relevant activities that we can use to put in box 3 on their reference form. Okay, so I'm not going to dwell on that. There will be more information coming out about this to students, particularly over the next term. This is the term where I really focus on students' applications to their chosen destination. So over the coming weeks, if you're sitting here thinking, well, my son or daughter might be applying through UCAS to the UK, but they might also be applying in the Netherlands or Canada, then I will be running sessions talking about applications in those countries as well. So this is the beginning of the process, certainly not the end. Okay. So what is the process in a nutshell? So through UCAS, students can apply to up to 5 universities. And it's all done through one portal, UCAS, with those minor exceptions I mentioned earlier. Now, I've put a little asterisk there. There are a couple of caveats to this. You don't have to select all 5 universities in one go. If come the deadline, if approaching the deadline, you've decided on 2 or 3 of your universities, you can add those into your application, submit your application. And as long as you select the other 2, if you want to apply to 5, as long as you select the other 2 before the deadline, you're guaranteed equal consideration. So they don't all have to be inputted at one time. If you are applying for medicine, veterinary science, you're only allowed to make 4 of your 5 choices directly to the medicine course. Your 5th choice would have to be, is normally an allied health sciences course, something like health sciences or biomedical science or biochemistry, something like that, that's related to your previous courses, the medicine courses. Okay. So that's the application process. If you might be applying to other countries, you could make more than 5 applications. So in the US, I think Common App will allow you to apply to something like 20 universities. In the UK, it's a lot less than that. And one would argue that, can you realistically say that you would really like to attend more than 5 universities? Probably not. You should be able to limit your choices to 5 universities that are universities you really want to go to. Okay. Next point. So the beauty of this system is that while you're applying to 5 universities, you only have to write 1 personal statement, and it does go to all 5 of those universities. The slight downside of that is you can't apply to particularly diverse courses. So this is an extreme example, and I've never come across this, but if somebody wanted to do astrophysics and photography and they couldn't decide which they really wanted to do, well, the personal statement and UCAS wouldn't really satisfy applications to those 2 courses, because you can't write 1 personal statement that makes you sound suitable for astrophysics and photography. So the courses you apply for through UCAS do have to be fairly similar. They don't have to be identical, but they have to be fairly similar. Okay. Again, university deadlines for applications in the UK are streamlined, which is excellent. Again, contrasting with Europe or the US, each university can set their own application deadlines, albeit they tend to be around the same date. There could be variations within universities, their application deadlines. That's not the case with the UK. All universities abide by the same deadline. So if you've got a date, you know that's what you need to stick to for all of your universities. What do I mean by equal consideration? Well, in the UK, as long as students submit their application by the stated deadline, and I'll show you that on the next slide, you are guaranteed to have your application given equal consideration with everybody else. If you miss the deadline, you are not guaranteed that the university will give your application equal consideration. That's particularly true for highly competitive universities. For less competitive universities and or courses, they may well accept applications after the deadline I'm going to show you on the next slide, but they don't have to. Okay. And again, a contrast to the US, particularly where you pay per application. There's only 1 application fee. It's £27.50, which at the current exchange rate is about 120 dirhams. And that covers all 5 of your applications. If you make 1 application, it's still £27.50. That's a slight change from subsequent years, previous years, sorry. But you've only got 1 application fee to pay. I think in the US, the average application fee per university is something like $45 US. So you can see it's a little bit cheaper than applying in the US, and you only pay once, and that's £27.50. And we've got some dedicated help in schools. So there's me, obviously, so I'm happy to talk to families and students on an individual basis about their application, but each student will also be given a personal statement tutor. It's normally their form tutor who will give them direct help with that personal statement. Sometimes if you're applying for a specialist course and there's a teacher that either did that course, or it's quite a niche subject, you might not be allocated to your form tutor, you might be allocated to that teacher, but that's a benefit to you because they'll be more in tune with what you want to apply for. Okay, so deadlines. I've put a selection of 3 on here. There are a few more, but these are the 3 important ones. 2nd of October, that's quite early. That's for conservatoire music applications. So they are really early, and they're likely to involve a portfolio as well. If you see dance, drama, and musical theatre up there, they may, as it says, have different deadlines. So you need to check. If you're applying to a conservatoire for dance, drama, and music, then you need to check their individual websites for those dates. But that's the only really, the only nuance. 16th of October is the deadline for Oxbridge. and for medicine, dentistry, and vet science. So again, that's an early application. That's partly because students have to do admissions tests and they will all be interviewed for those courses as well. So that deadline's a little bit ahead of the main equal consideration deadline for that reason. So the 31st of January is the equal consideration deadline for almost all undergraduate courses, apart from Oxbridge, medicine, dentistry, and the conservatoires. So what that means is if an applicant submits their application before 6 p.m. on the 31st of January, they are guaranteed equal consideration with all the other applicants. Okay. If students are applying for courses that need to meet this 16th of October deadline, we will identify them this time and we will start work on their application before we come back in September, because that 16th of October deadline comes around awfully quickly once we're back at school in term 1. Sorry, I should have said before, if you have any questions, please just type them in the chat and I'll have a read of them at the end and hopefully be able to answer them. So where can you as students and families get information about universities? Well, you may have heard of Unifrog. Certainly the students will all have heard of Unifrog. It's a university and careers platform that we use in school. It's an enormous database of help with your application, information about universities, and there's a suite of what you would call in the olden days perhaps psychometric tests, so skills profile, interest profile, work environments profile. They're all there for the students to do, find out a little bit about themselves. So you as parents can also have a dummy, if you like, Unifrog account. Don't worry, you can't apply for anything. Press whatever buttons you want to press. You can't break anything. And the parent code is there. So if you go to www.unifrog.org, on the right-hand side of that screen will be a sign-up code box. If you click that sign-up code and enter DUBS parent, then you can have your own, effectively, it's a student account that you've got. So you can poke around in Unifrog and see what your sons or daughters are doing, and you can help them with their research if you'd like to as well. So it's a fantastic resource. I would urge you all to have a go at logging in with the code, setting up the Unifrog account. If you type in that DBS parent code, you're not going to get emails and things from me, I don't believe. So don't worry, you're not going to be bombarded with stuff that I will bombard students with. You'll just have a static access to the platform that you can use to help your sons or daughters research. Okay, so UCAS.com. UCAS is a fantastic, amazing website that covers absolutely everything to do with university applications. The difference between UCAS and Unifrog, obviously, is that UCAS is specific to the UK, whereas Unifrog covers applications all over the world. So it'll have information specific to applying to universities in Europe, in Australasia. They're adding a South American function to it as well. So you name it in the world, you will probably find information about it. And Unifrog UCAS is confined to the UK. If we just skip the uni guide for a moment and look down at the bottom 3 links on this slide, you can have parent access in UCAS as well. So you can sign up for a newsletter. There is a specific section for international students there, and I've just put the links for those on the bottom of this slide that might be helpful to you. The reason I've added the uni guide in there is just it's a contrasting source to UCAS. So I am conscious there must be 1,000 different websites out there, all purporting to give information about applying to study at university in the UK, etc., but I would really worry about getting lost in all of that. I would confine your searches to Unifrog, UCAS, and the uni guide. And there are a couple of links I've put on the next slide as well that you might want to use. But, you know, I wouldn't go to the general internet looking for things. I'd confine your research to these web addresses that I put here. They're reliable information, well presented. So, you know, you can rely on that for a useful source of information. Okay, so this is the kind of thing I talk a lot to students about, but it's also useful to show you as well. So there are various factors that you might want to take into consider when you're choosing a university. So I managed to find 3 things that begin with C. There's no coincidence there. That's just happened that way, I think. So the course you apply to, type of degree conferred. By that I mean, is it a Bachelor of Arts, is it a Bachelor of Science? They're the main two types of degree you'll get in the UK and around the world. You might have a Bachelor of Engineering, a B.Eng, but the reason I put that in there is that there's no right or wrong type of degree to choose. BScs are not better than BAs, but there might be some courses you see in your research. Economics is a classic example where you could do the degree as a Bachelor of Science, or you could do it as a Bachelor of Arts. So the way economics works is if you go down the measurement econometrics route, that's likely to be lots of maths and data analysis. So that's going to probably confer you a Bachelor of Science degree, a BSc. If you were more interested in behavioral economics, psychology and sociology of decision-making, that kind of thing, then that might be offered as a BA degree. So you might see some degrees, economics is the classic example, that are offered as a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Arts. So you just need to be aware of what the implications of that choice are. If you choose the BSc route, it's much more likely to be mathematically focused than the BA route, okay? Most degrees in the UK are 3 years, possibly 4 years if they integrate a master's or there's a year in industry. There are some universities now offering accelerated degrees, which are 2 years in length. They still cost the same in tuition fees as a 3-year degree, unfortunately, but you do finish in 2 years. So there's just basically no summer holiday, shorter holidays and things like that. So obviously there's a bit of a cost saving there to be made in accommodation and living costs and things like that, but they're not hugely common. So you'd need to search quite hard for them probably, and they might only be offered in some subjects. Dual award degree, what do I mean by that? Well, some degrees will take two contrasting subjects, put them together. Maybe, you know, business is a classic example. You do that with lots of other subjects, business with French, business with international relations, things like that. So you might be conferred a dual award degree if you chose one of those as well. Unibuddy, I've put a hyperlink there to the UCAS system, Unibuddy. So Unibuddy is a secure online chat function whereby potential applicants can chat to students at a university, hopefully also studying the course they want to study, so they can get the kind of inside scoop on what it's like to study that course at that university. But that might be a really useful tool if you can't get to the UK to go and visit an open day or speak to anybody directly about a course at a particular university. So there is that function. You can chat to people virtually instead of having to actually turn up at an open day. But I would always advocate, if you are traveling this summer back to the country where you're potentially making a university application, then, you know, get in touch with the university and ask them if there'll be anybody around just to give you a quick tour. Nothing makes more of a difference than setting foot on a campus, I don't think. I remember years and years ago in my searching for university days, I went to a couple of universities. One I thought I really wanted to go to, one I wasn't sure. And when I set foot on the campus, those two opinions completely switched. I really didn't like the one I thought I wanted to apply to at all, just didn't like the feel of the place. The one I thought, maybe I'll apply there, maybe not, I actually really liked, so did end up applying there. So, you know, it does make a huge difference just going and have a look at the facilities. You can make facilities look amazing in a well-produced video. When you actually get there, things might look slightly different. So please, if you can, go and have a look at some universities. I think UCAS also has a section for consolidating all university open days. So if your sons or daughters are interested in that, get them to come and find me, and I'll try and find that information where all those dates and things are consolidated. Obviously, you'd be traveling in the summer term, so they might not be happening, but universities are always happy to show prospective students and families around. Okay, so cost, tuition fee, up to £9,250 per annum for home fee students. If you're an international student, depending on the course you apply for, that might be double that. But there's a hyperlink there to UK study options, which will assist parents and families with their home fee status. If you're not sure, if you're a British passport holder, but you've been out of the country for a while, you may still qualify for home fee status. If you're a non-UK passport holder, you're not going to be eligible for home fee status, I don't believe, but get in touch with UK study options, see what they say. I've put some hyperlinks there to cost of accommodation, cost of living. As with any country in the world, really, if you're living in the big cities, the cost of living is probably going to be a little bit higher. than living in and studying at a rural campus. So that's something to bear in mind. There are occasionally scholarships and bursaries available for students in the UK, but it's nowhere near such a big thing as it is in the US. If you're an international student applying to the UK, there might be a few more available for you, but certainly if you're a UK student, highly unlikely. Maintenance loans. So again, if you qualify for home fee status at your university, that doesn't mean you will automatically gain access to a loan from the student loans company. The student loans company make their own assessment of your fee status. So you need to be aware of that too. So a maintenance loan is to cover things like living costs, accommodation, all that kind of thing. And there's a link there to Save the Student, which is an amazing website, gives information about all sorts of offers, banking, all that kind of thing to students that are studying in the UK. So which university? I should have said university. College is quite an American term, isn't it? But it began with a C, so that's why I left it in as a factor. But what I mean by college is which university you apply to. So if you are tempted by rankings, I've put a link there to the Guardian newspaper's university rankings, and I think they are particularly useful because it allows you to filter universities based on things like value for money, employability, student satisfaction, rather than just research output, because I would argue that those kinds of things I mentioned previously are probably more important to families and students than how much research the university churns out. Yes, there's a link, between publication and expert knowledge and things like that, but there are also other things to throw into the mix that I think are probably equally important for lots of the population. So there are lots of other ranking companies out there, but just be aware that they all prioritize slightly different things. So if you look at the Times higher education ranking compared to the Guardian, you're not comparing apples with apples. They'll be ranking universities based on different criteria. So bear that in mind. I've mentioned location, type of university. In the UK, you've kind of got a split between the red brick, the ancient universities, and the newer universities. You've also got a split between the city universities, which tend to have buildings all over the city, combination blocks all over the city. So you might have a bit of travel involved, and the campus type universities, which tend to be more rural, outside of the larger cities, but everything you need is in one campus. Your accommodation, your shops, your sport facilities, and your lecture halls will all be on one campus. So that's something to bear in mind as well. I've put links with employers and other unis. You have some random universities that might be close to a manufacturing plant. I think the University of Derby is quite close to Rolls-Royce, so they have amazing links for their engineering programs with that company. So again, if you're looking for niche, nuanced courses, that might be something to throw into the mix as well. What links does the university have with employers, particularly if I'm getting a year out in industry with my degree as well? And employability there. Again, so how many of the leaving cohort actually gain jobs within 6 months, 3 months, 1 year of leaving the university? Oh, I think I've put the link there. Visit if you can. I think that is a link to a compiled list of university open days. So if you click on that link, I'm hoping that's where it takes you. So you'll have some idea of when open days are happening at universities. But even if they're not happening at the university when you're in the UK, just get in touch with the university. They're more than happy to show you around, sure. Okay, so that's it. We've got 7.5 minutes left. If anybody has any questions and you are brave enough to ask in front of everybody else, then please ask your questions now. I can't see anything in the chat, so I'm assuming there are no questions being typed by anybody. And nobody has any questions? No? Okay, so if you don't have any questions, please feel free to leave the meeting. As I said before, if you do want to discuss your own personal circumstance or destinations, please email me and I'm more than happy to meet in school or via Zoom. Okay.